Today we are going to be talking about billing in TRAKnet 3.0. What you see in front of you is the standard scheduling screen. What we're going to start with is our scheduler. We'll show some features on the scheduler, and then I'm going to move to a patient's chart showing you some of the billing features within the patient's chart, and we'll move on to how to bill an encountered invoice, and then we'll move on to the billing dashboard. But I want to start here on the encounter, on the invoice. Back up. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about billing in TRAKnet 3.0. What you see in front of you is the scheduler, which is where I would like to start today. We'll move on from the scheduler into a patient's chart, discussing the billing features in the patient's chart. From there, we will actually bill an encounter invoice, and from there, move on to the billing dashboard, going through submitting a claim, after scrubbing a claim, and then some of the billing features. But for today, we're going to start on the billing dashboard, or on the scheduler, so we can move on to the billing and then on to the billing dashboard. What you see in front of you is I have two patients on my schedule today. Our first one there, you'll notice, does not have a copay required, but I do have a blue link for insurance information, and there is no balance on the account. Our second patient today does have a copay required and also has a zero balance. To collect a copay from your scheduler, you click on the word right there, copay, which will allow me to receive the copay and select the method of payment. I can either choose cash, check, or credit card are the most common forms of payment method. For today's purpose, we're going to use cash. Once I select my cash, you'll notice it is marked copay because that's what we clicked from the copay at the bottom of the scheduler. I'm going to click the word save, and you'll notice at that point it allows me to print a receipt. Had I wanted to collect more, maybe if there was an outstanding balance, I could have increased that amount. But for today's purposes, we'll stick with the copay amount. And later on, when we get further into the billing dashboard, I'll show you how to apply that copay as well. So now that I've accepted that, I could print my receipt. But for now, we're just going to save that and close. You'll notice now my copay is grayed out, and I couldn't collect that again. One of the neat features in 3.0 that is available as an enhancement is an integrated patient insurance eligibility check, but I can also manage my patient's insurance right from the scheduler as well. If my patient came in and had a change to their insurance, or maybe their copay had changed, I can click on that insurance tab and bring up and make their changes to their insurance at that time. And there's that eligibility I mentioned. With that, I could check to see their coverage information, their deductible, whether they had any remaining or if they'd met their deductible, maybe what their copay was for a specialist, right there, specialist copay, deductible, coinsurance, or possibly if I wanted to check if they had separate DME coverage as well. It's a great handy tool and a very nice enhancement to have. But there I can manage my subscribers' information. Maybe their policy didn't change or maybe their copay increased. I could do all that right from my scheduler, from my blue little insurance hyperlink there. I'm going to save and close that. Or maybe they added a secondary insurance. I could also add an additional insurance right from my scheduler from my insurance tab. Just by clicking add, brings up that, and I could select their insurance from any of the payers on my list, or if I even needed to add an insurance. And I can do all of that from my scheduler, from that blue hyperlink from Insurance tab. That insurance right there. allows me to assign my insurance as primary, secondary, or tertiary, all right from our scheduler. So now that our patient has checked in and we've collected their copay from our scheduler, or if we needed to change their insurance, we can do all that right here. I want to take you to their account and show you the billing features within their account. Just by clicking on the patient's name, takes you to their account. And you'll notice I have a very colorful billing dashboard as my default. This has their insurance information, and this is all customizable to the information that you want to see for your patient in that billing dashboard. Just by editing it, you can select the information that you want to see there. And if you want to learn how to do that, I suggest checking out one of our training videos on how to customize your dashboard. It's a very handy feature to have. You'll see I have a place where I can select my holding charges if I needed to hold charges, maybe if I needed more information. That's a link I put on my dashboard. But it is actually also available from my demographics. As I scroll down, you'll see there's some billing information on my demographics tab as well. And there's that hold I have right there. Or if I needed to set a responsible party, some of the billing information that we need is right in your demographics. I want to move on today to our billing tab. And you'll notice we have our primary destination for our insurance, our secondary, and our tertiary. Right now there's just a primary on there, and this is all on our insurance icon right here. Our second icon there is our ledger. You'll notice now we have some new features on our ledger. We have quite a few filter options with our ledger. We can see our deleted. We can see dependents if you wanted to see all of the dependents that were responsible on that account, or if maybe you just wanted to see the individual. We could set the default on the expanding out the tree, and those are those plus signs on those drop downs, so you can see what the charges are. On the invoice you can see all, or maybe if you just wanted to see products or services or payments, all of that information is available on a filter. We'll leave it as show all for now. I can select my date range. So if I only wanted to see this year, or maybe I wanted to see something that was recent, or I can see what is just patient responsibility or what's not patient responsibility, depending on what I'm looking for. If I had multiple locations, maybe I just wanted to see the bills for a certain location or a different provider. At the bottom, you'll notice I have a patient responsibility balance, but I also have an insurance pending balance. So I can see what is pending with insurance as well. And they're green for patient balance and blue for the insurance balance, just by toggling there. And this is our filters on our ledger that we discussed. This is my encounters. If I come to my next charge, to my next tab for charges, you can see the codes that were actually billed for those dates of service and the amounts. And had there been any payments, there would have been insurance payment information and patient payment information, as well as if there was a patient responsibility date. On our payment tab, you would see there's that copay that we collected on the scheduler, and you can see it hasn't been applied yet. So it's right there if you're looking for any outstanding payment information, right on our ledger. And if I needed to print out my charges, I do have the availability to print and a preview of my ledger right there. A lot of people ask for a copy of their ledger, and that's how you would print that. And you can preview it first and print it. Or maybe if your patient had a balance when they came in and you wanted to give them a statement, to print one, all you would have to do is just press the Add button, and that would print a patient statement for that day. And you could hand them their statement. If I had a referral that I needed to add for my patient, this is where I would do it, under my authorizations, just by clicking the word Add. I would select the insurance if they had multiple, or maybe one insurance they had required a referral and one did not. I could select the insurance carrier that required the referral, put in the referral information, the start and stop dates. Maybe it was only good for this month, and maybe it's only good for 2 visits. And if I had any treatment codes that I needed to assign to it, I could do that as well. And now you see there's that authorization and the number of visits, and it will track the number that are allowed. My Remarks tab under Billing allows me to add any comments that I may need for billing. Maybe I needed to refile the claim. Maybe I spoke to the parent about their insurance, or the patient about their insurance, or any conversations or any information about claims that I find might come in handy for reference for that patient. Just by clicking Add, I can add that information. Maybe it was about billing questions, and we discussed deductibles. Be better if I could spell. There we go. And that way you can keep notes for yourself and when it was entered and who entered it. So again, we have our insurance information, our ledger, if we needed to add any statements, any authorizations that we had, we added it, or any remarks that we had. A lot of times we have patients asking for summaries. Their summaries are right here. If we needed to give them information, maybe they needed to know what copays they had had or paid over the time, that information's available right there. And that again is under your actions and the word summary. And you can put in your date range. And that's our billing tab in our patients chart. And that's where we're going to use a lot of our information, especially on our ledger. We could also apply an insurance payment, a patient payment, or a provider adjustment from our patients chart, as well as from our billing dashboard. It's just one other place we could do it. Just by clicking on the payments, we could apply those here as well. And you can see each one brings up that payment window. So those are all the features in our patient's billing tab in their chart. I'm going to go back to our scheduler because what we're going to do now is start an encounter note so we can get to the invoicing screen so we can show you all the features in our invoice and how to add and delete and change. So let's go back to our scheduler, and we're going to start an encounter note so we can get to the billing. We're not going to discuss encounter notes, we're just going to get to an invoice. So by either clicking on our encounter tab, or we can click on our drop down and create an encounter. Either way works. And I am literally just going to do a blank one for today because we're just talking about billing, and I just need it in order to get some codes onto our invoice. And I don't necessarily need to even put any codes on here. I'm just doing it for ease purposes. And we're just going to, let's just do a real simple nails and calluses today. And you'll notice all I'm doing is free typing on our diagnosis. Just to get our codes in there. And what I'm going to do is come to our invoice tab, because this is where I want to spend our time today. You'll notice that the codes I typed came right over to our invoice, but I don't have any diagnosis just yet. And we're going to assign those. You'll notice I also have access to past billing history for my patient, whether it's in the last 90 days, 60, 120, whatever history I'm looking for that I want to see for this patient. I have access to all of that information right on my invoice screen now. So I can see if I'm within any global period, or maybe I want to see what's still outstanding, or what did we bill that patient last time, what were our diagnosis codes. So I have that information right in front of me now, which is very handy. At the bottom, you'll notice I have my insurance information, and should I need to make any modification to it, I can change it at that time. I could add a new one, or make any changes, or even take it off. So here's today's charges, here's my past history, here is my insurance information. You'll notice I have some drop downs on my views, and I want to take you through all of those, and then we'll come back to the first one and we'll go through each one a little bit more. The charge edit mode brings up where you'll see those diagnoses that we had typed on our encounter, and you'll notice I have drop downs next to each line. I still have my fees, but now I've opened up and I have a checkbox for patient responsibility. So should I have anything that I know may be not covered by insurance at that time, I could just check the patient responsibility box and it won't even get billed to insurance. It'll just be automatically set to my patient's responsibility. And then I would hit save. Or if I needed to make some changes to that information, I could click my edit, and that would bring up an edit box. Or if I wanted to make any comment on the line, such as non-covered service, by clicking on my comments, it would bring up a comment box. We're going to get into each one a little bit more in detail, but I wanted to take you through the views first. The payment view shows there have been no payments on this just yet because this is one we just created, but it would show you the date paid, the payer, the allowed deductible. We give you all that payment information on that invoice. So maybe down the line when we wanted to go back and see the payment information for this encounter, we would go to the payment view to see all of that payment information. So let's go back to our charges view. And you'll notice it's kind of a simplistic view of what our encounter invoice is. By double-clicking on each individual line, it's going to bring up a modify box. And you'll notice I have 3 tabs at this point. My treatment, which tells me my code, my description, my date, my fees, and I have my drop-downs for my diagnoses with a full descriptor of what each diagnosis is. Same with my modifiers. This is where I get a full descriptor list of what those diagnoses and modifiers are. I find that handy just to make sure, as a double check, what my full descriptor is. And all I would need to do is just drop in and select the one I'm looking for. My claim details brings up a little bit different information. If I had an NDC number that I needed to add to a medication that we had used, this is where I could do that. If my DME or X-ray required an ordering provider for my area, this is where I would enter that information. If I needed to add any comment to that line, just like in the other view, this is where I could do that as well. So that is what our charge view is. You'll notice I didn't save it, I just closed it. Had I saved it, and we'll do that again so you can see the difference. Had I just picked that and clicked the word save, it puts my diagnosis on the line. In my charge edit mode, you'll notice I have my diagnosis codes, and there's that one we put in. When I'm in the active box, I can either type the number 1 or 2 or 3 for what my diagnoses are, and it will drop right in and populate. And the same with my modifier. I could just type the modifier and it will take. Or I can use the drop-down arrows and select the modifier as well, or the diagnosis code. Either one works that way. You'll notice now with doing them that way, I now have this red ring around my save button, and that is to remind me that I need to click the word save so that it retains the information that we did here. So now I have those there, and that is all that I need to do. And once I'm done, I could click my bill ready. But we're going to explore these other tabs as well. So let's do that. My claim details gives me my supervising provider, if I needed to add my date last seen. And you'll notice now I have access to box 19, which is my date last seen. So let's add a date last seen. And this is an insurance that I have set that doesn't require to send forward that information, but if I did, it would populate that box for me. You'll notice I have the ability to preview in the ANSI format or my CMS 1500 preview. But this is where I want to show you our Claim Wizard, because Claim Wizard really has some wonderful, neat features to it. If I need to split out my claim, maybe part needs to go to Medicare and part needs to go to DME, this is where I would come in to do this. I would select what needs to go to what carrier and what my place of service would be. So, for example, if I needed my office visit to go one place, I would just simply click off what I needed to do and click send. And then my other items, I would then come and select my other carrier and send that elsewhere. And I have another claim that we'll get into that a little bit more in detail, but I wanted to at least start to show you some of the features in the Claim Wizard. Or if I needed to change my output and maybe I needed to send it to paper because I needed to send it along with notes, this is where I could do that as well. But for now, we'll leave it like that. I have my claim check, and it tells me I didn't select an authorization and knows I have one on my file. So let's come back here and select that referral we put in at the beginning. And there's my claim history. Had I already sent it, I would have a claim history associated with this. So now we're back to our invoice. And let's come back to our charges mode, because I want to show you how to add diagnosis codes and CPT codes. The first thing I want to show you are diagnosis codes. Maybe we forgot a diagnosis code and we need to add it. And this is one of the interesting new features that I think are going to make things a lot easier for billing. You'll notice my diagnosis tab is actually broken up into 3 separate windows. I have, these are all diagnoses for this patient that I've used over time. These are my active visit problems for today's visit. And then I have this window over here. And what this window over here allows me to do is have an Icd-9 search right at my fingertips. So maybe I needed to find a code that I hadn't used for this patient yet. Maybe I knew it started with something but couldn't quite remember the code, or I needed to look for something. It allows me to either search by a descriptor or by a code. So if I were to put in the word bunion, you'll see even before I finish the word bunion, it's already dropped in right down here. And there it is. So just by clicking the word add, it would add to my active problems for my patient and also for my visit problems for today's visit. I also have the ability to build a favorites list, and that's what this is right here, an Icd-9 favorites. So I don't have to continue to go back and look for the same codes over and over and over again. And I've actually already done that. So I'm going to click on my Favorites tab and show you the features in our favorites. You'll notice it comes up in an alphabetical listing, but I can also resort by code. So if I knew my code started with something, I can put it in a code sort, and there I have all of my diagnosis codes. And the neat thing is, this is also going to be for ICD-10 as well. I'll be able to make a favorites list for ICD-10 and have the ability to search for my ICD-10 codes and cross them from my 9 to my 10s. But that's a whole nother feature to show you in the future. It's a wonderful new tool too. But again, I could have my own favorites list by user, or I could have a practice favorites, which is what this is a practice favorites list. And again, in alphabetical sort or numerical sort. If I wanted to have all of these visit problems available to me on today's encounter to bill, you just press the Select All Problems, and it's going to add what wasn't already on my encounter to begin with. And I can reorder my diagnosis right from my up and down arrows over here. Very user-friendly. If I wanted to take off a diagnosis code for today's visit, I simply have to press the word Remove. And we'll take off that one too. So those would take them off of today's visit problems. Still going to leave them on my diagnosis up here, but these are my active ones for today's visit. So these were all of my diagnoses. So this is like having my whole ICD-9 right at my fingertips to either search by descriptors or by code number. So let's come back to our invoice. And if I need to add, maybe I left off a code, a Cpt code. So we've already seen how to add a diagnosis code. Let's look at how we add a Cpt code, or maybe even an over-the-counter product code. We go to our green plus right here that says Add. I could just type in the code right there in the box, and it would add it. But I think the green plus adds some neat features for adding. I do have a favorites. That's my most commonly used codes. I have a search feature, and this is what I like. I can show my products and actually what's in inventory. And what that does will bring up all of my current inventory products that I can literally just go down my list and check off the items that that patient got. I don't have to add them one at a time. I can just go through the list and add them. And you'll notice, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, is it already made them patient responsibility. They're already green, and if I needed to change my quantity, I can just double click on the line and it brings up that modify box like what we saw on the charges screen earlier, and I can change my quantity right then and there. And it changes my quantity down here. Or I could click on the modify and it'll bring up the box as well. So that's very handy for all of my over-the-counter products, but maybe it's not over-the-counter. Let's come back to the tab that says Super Bill. I have my E&M codes, any of my derm codes, nails, calluses, all of these are off of my Super Bill. I could just add them as well. Same with my DME codes, any of my injections, my radiology or labs, or any of my surgical codes. I can just click on them to add them as well. I can use my arrows here to reorder my order that they're in, and I could also remove it, and it's going to give me a warning, and there we go. I took it right off. So I can do all of that just from my Green Plus. So I don't have to do them one at a time. I can do all of that at once. And I can also change my order or remove them, or even, same thing, modify and bring up that edit box. You'll notice that was that comment that we had put back on our billing tab earlier in our patients chart under the remarks. So it knows we have a remark there too. So see how everything interacts together. So now that we've gone through everything and we've added all of our over-the-counter and we've added all of our diagnosis and we've looked at everything for this patient and this claim is now ready to go, we can check our bill ready. So now this bill is ready to go. And I'm going to save and close it, because that's going to bring us to our next point of our billing dashboard. And what I want to show you is on my encounters list, we'll start at the top. I have encounters, payments, claims, statements, reports, and options. And we're going to cover all of those. You'll notice I have two encounters. One I did previously and the one we just did now. And it breaks it out by who the patient is, your provider, the name of the template, the insurance it's going to, the amount, whether it's charted, is it bill ready, and is it patient responsibility. I did one earlier because I want to show you how we can go back and get into it from the encounters list as well. So I'm going to open up the one I did earlier just by double clicking on it. You'll see I did the same thing there. I just threw some codes on a blank encounter, which is why that one said blank. And again, no diagnosis codes on it, but I can bring up my edit mode and I can drop them in, and just for the sake of, you'll see I can do it, I just hit the number 2 and it dropped that in, or I can drop down and put them in. Very easily. And when I said you can type in your modifier, just like that, and again we got that red ring around there, and I click Save and Save. We're coming back to our charges screen. See, I've got those in there. adding, in our area, we're required to put an ordering provider on things like cam walkers. And that's all it takes to do that. Probably should have added my diagnosis codes while we were in there. So as you can see, it's very, very easy to add things and get around. I personally like this window because I can still see everything. I can see my descriptors. I can see what I'm doing. I can see what order I'm in. And it reminds me that the only way to get out is either cancel or save, instead of in the edit mode, remembering the save over here. But a lot of people like to still be able to type their diagnosis codes or to drop them down. So it's really a preference as to what you're most comfortable with doing. And there you have them. So I wanted you to see the various ways you can use the invoice screen to your advantage in a way you're comfortable with. And that's the idea of it. It's how your workflow works and is customizable, to you. So if you want to see it in this view or in this view, this one probably should have it right on it. Here we go. You can see how you can change between the screens and they save back and forth. So whatever view is most comfortable or pleasing to you, you can use either or and they save. And again, there's those claim details. There's a date last seen because this carrier is set to require one. And there it populates our box 19. And what I mentioned before on the claim wizard, for example, that would be a home use item. I could change my place of service to 12 and hit send, and that would go off. And then I would, after that was gone, I would change my place of service back to 11 for the rest of my items, and I could hit send. I don't want to send that right now because I want to show you the claims list, but that's how you would change your place of service and use your claim wizard to do so. So this one will be now ready since we went through and we checked our items, our claim check. We obviously don't have a claim history yet. So let's save and close that one. So now we have 2 claims on our encounter list today that are bill ready. Obviously not charted yet because we were just using a blank encounter just to get to the invoicing part today. So these are bill ready. I want to show you the claims. I'm going to skip payments for just a second because I want to come back and show you how we would apply a payment once it came in. So these are our claims. And I'm going to hit refresh so you can see our 2 claims that are ready to go. Let me get today. See if I can. There's our 2 claims just for today. And we have one set to go for paper and one is an output to none. Seems a little odd. I want to show you how you can change those without having to go into each one. So let's select all and change my output. And it's going to tell me I'm going to change it permanently. Yes, I want to change it permanently. So now I've selected change those, and they're all changed and ready to go. So I could just select those 2 and hit send. And those claims would be ready to go and off they would go. So if I needed to change them to paper, maybe I needed to send them with notes for a reason, I could change them to paper and send them that way, select them both, and hit send. Or if maybe one was electronic and one was paper, I could actually select my ones that were just paper to work with, so I could send all my paper claims at one time and select all my ones that were electronic and send those at one time. It's a way you can filter out your claims that you're working with. But let's change back to these, and we'll send those back to electronic. So you can see how easy it is to manage the claims that you have ready to go, whether they're primary or secondary. I can even change my sequence, so maybe if I just wanted to send all my paper secondaries and get those printed at one time, I can filter those out as well. So let's pretend those have gone. We've selected those and we've sent them off. Let's come in and we're going to do that copay that we took back on the scheduler. So I want to see what's unapplied for today. So there's that. All I did was check the unapplied button, and there's that $40 copay. So all I'm going to do is click on that twice, and you'll see I've played with some charges previously, and there's some over-the-counters. And I'm going to show you how to take a patient payment for those here shortly as well. So today's visit was our copay, and that's what we're going to do. See, it's already checked for copay. That's a default, which is nice to have. I'm just going to click the word balance because we wanted all of that to go to the copay. And you'll see down here it's now applied as a $40 copay, and that's all I need to do. And that copay is all applied. If I wanted to, I could remove this, and maybe I wanted to apply it to the over-the-counter products instead. I could do that as well. But let's go back and put that on that copay, and we're going to close that. So now what I want to do is accept a patient payment for those over-the-counter products. So all we're going to do is click Add Patient. And I just selected the patient, and maybe they paid $50 cash, and hit the word Save. And once I've collected that and I've said the word Save, you'll notice that Charges tab popped up. Once I hit Save, I can now have their charges that they're available for me to apply to. And just by doing the word balance, it applies the full amount of that item to the balance. If I only wanted to apply a partial amount to each line, all I would have to do is type in the amount I wanted to apply to that line and press the button that says Add. So you'll see I only applied $20 to that item, so it still has a $4 balance. And now I still have $10 remaining, and maybe I wanted to put $10. I could either put the $10 in the amount or just again press the word balance. And you'll see that one has a $10 balance, that one has a $4 balance. It split out that amount. So let's close that. Now I want to show you how to take an insurance payment. So that particular one was Coventry. Select the insurance that came in, And we're going to even show all of this to deductible, as a matter of fact. But I want to show you that I actually have the ability to show it as a credit card payment, as some insurance companies are going to credit cards, issuing temporary credit cards for payment methods. So that is an available option as a payment method, as some people had requested. But we'll leave it as this, as a zero payment, and I'm going to put in non-payment. And it's going to tell me, is it zero? Do I want to continue? And I do want to continue. And you'll notice nothing came up. And this is why I wanted to show this as a zero. I have an arrow down here that says Show Pending. And when I click Show Pending, now I have my option to pick a patient. And you'll notice when I picked it, nothing came up because I haven't actually, in reality, submitted that particular claim because this isn't live. So I'm going to, just for the sake to get this open, I'm going to unclick this Payer Only button so it can bring up those charges for me. Let me go Slimmer Surface. So now, here's that one that we did. And we're going to put the whole thing as allowed. And we're going to put the whole thing as deductible. And I'm going to click the word Add. And it came down to the bottom line. And maybe they allowed 45. And 45 went to the deductible. And we're going to do Add. And that, you'll notice the repeating feature that it all went to Add because I wanted to, anything I click Add brings it down to the bottom line so that it's now applied. So I see the history of everything that I've applied. So you can see the amount that was adjusted, the amount that went to the deductible, and the allowable amount. And I had my auto calculation on there, and I still have those two as well. And I'm good to go. Now, just as a double check for me, I like to make sure that I hit that patient responsibility button to get everything to turn green, just as a safety measure. And we'll close that. So now we've accepted that insurance payment. You'll notice there were some other charges on there as well, and maybe the provider wants to extend a courtesy on those over-the-counter products, and that's why there was a balance. And we're going to adjust off that remaining over-the-counter products balance. So let's add a provider adjustment, because I think the way they're done is so very easy. So we're going to come in here and select the patient. And in order to commit the patient balance adjustments, all I have to do is, again, I could put in an amount. In this case, I'm just going to do the full remaining balance. And you'll notice there's a button over here that says Commit Adjustment. I also have down here the invoice. I could go back to the invoice, or I could go back to the patient chart. But let's go to Commit Adjustment. I could also see what was pending still, but right now I'm just on the patient balance. So by pressing Commit Adjustment, until I press that word Save, it's not fully saved yet. So I could come back and look at the charges for sure. There's the payment. It added it for me, but I have to press the word Save. Till I tell it to save, I'm not 100% sure. So it's adding it for me. I don't have to know the amount to start with. I don't have to know any of that. It's going to add it up for me, and then I'm going to hit the word Save. And close. So now what I want to see are all of the payments that we took today. So let's uncheck the unapplied because we've applied everything. And there are those payments that we took today. That show the patient payments, the insurance, and the adjustment. And what I want to show you is if we were to remove one, maybe it really wasn't a cash payment, maybe it was a credit card and we needed to change the payment type, I could remove the payment. It pops up with a reason. Please provide a reason. Wrong type. Has to give a reason. So now it's deleted, but if I click my show deleted, now not only does it show deleted, it shows who deleted it, when, and why. So there's a tracking method to it. So we covered our encounters, we covered how to send the claim, we covered our payments. So let's do to our statements. So now that bill is sent to patient's responsibility and we need to send them a statement. So let's come to our statements. You'll notice that I have the option to filter out minimum or maximum balances, days past due, days since last statement, or if we had a monthly due date assigned to a statement. So I now have my filters right there up front. Or if I was looking for and wanted to do a specific letter, maybe if I did my statements by letter, certain times I can do my letters as well. Or if I don't want to do a minimum, any balance below a certain dollar amount, I can filter those out by my minimums. And I want to make sure it's been at least 30 days since I've sent them a statement. My list would populate here in the center, and I could preview them over here to my right. Our reports, we have our patient accounts receivable report, summary and details, our activity report. So if we were to run an activity report today, we would have our 2 charges that we did and the 1 payment that we did and some adjustments as well. We could see the details and we could see the charges that we did, what our actual charges were, and what our adjustments were. If we had appointments coming in with balances, we could see them there. Our collections. Any of our pending claims, we could see our pending claims both in summary or detail. We wanted to see our treatment history. If we wanted our list of any unsubmitted encounters that we had, they would be here. We have some legacy reports, our activity summaries again, deposit, ledgers, quite a few there. And we have quite a few queries. So there's quite a few reports in the billing area. Under options, some of the things that I wanted to show you was right down here under the patient ledger. When I showed you those filters back on the billing on the patient's ledger, you can change the expand all where it dropped out all the trees. You can change that to true so that it does it automatically and you don't have to change that. And you can set your default range on your ledger to the period of time that you want to see. Also, if you wanted to have a message on your patient statements, this is where you would do it. If you wanted to change whether you took MasterCard, Visa, American Express, all of your statement information is here. If you had a monthly due date, this is where that would be. if you had a standard default message for your statements or your 30, 60, 90s statements. That's where you would have that information. This is your auto set to patient responsibility and zero payments to patient responsibility is zero, is true. Those are all under your options. So I wanted to show you that. The next thing I want to show you is actually under your Properties tab. So you notice mainly we stayed in, most of what we did was in our billing once we got out of an invoice. But under our Properties tab, there's another place of a lot of helpful information that you need to know. If you need to add a new physician in your area, maybe you have a new PCP that you need to add, this is where you would do that just by clicking the add, and you would add their information. If you have a new insurance company, you could actually add it from the patient's chart like I showed you, or the scheduler on the insurance, or you could come into Properties and add it here under the insurance. Just by clicking the word add, entering their information. If you have a new treatment code to add, whether it's an over-the-counter product, you would add it here. Or if you wanted to add your modifiers to your Cpt codes, you could do that here as well. Like these are defaulted already, you would just type in your code, select your code, and hit modify, or double click and open it up to bring up the modify window, and that's where you could default your modifiers. Your payment type, like I mentioned, that you can now accept a credit card as a method of payment for insurance. These are all the method of payments that are available to you in your payment window. So you can change these to be whether they're insurance, patient, or provider. So that is where you would change that for credit card to be an insurance method of payment. And you can add that there as well. The other thing you should know is if you needed to add a modifier, like there are some discussion of new modifiers this year, this is where you would add any new modifier you needed to add, is right here. And I believe that is everything that we need to cover in billing today in 3.0. And I thank you for your time. Please check out our frequently asked questions and other web training videos on our website. Thank you very much.